You're sitting in a glass boardroom on the 42nd floor, surrounded by spreadsheets and quarterly reports. The city glitters below you in the darkness. And somewhere in the back of your mind, something doesn't add up. Not mathematically. The numbers are clean, the projections are solid, but there's a whisper beneath the data, a feeling you can't quite name. This is the moment many leaders face, the point where rational analysis meets something deeper, something that defies the logic we've been taught to trust. For decades, we've elevated the analytical mind to the status of oracle. We've built entire industries around the cult of data, the gospel of metrics and key performance indicators. And rightfully so. Numbers don't lie. They reveal patterns. They illuminate trends. They give us the illusion of control in an inherently chaotic world. But what happens when the data is perfect and your gut is screaming something different? What happens when your intuition contradicts your spreadsheet? Most executives face this dilemma at some point in their career, and most of them silence the intuitive voice they've been trained to. The business school curriculum didn't include a course called Trusting Your Gut, but it should have. There's a concept from Jungian psychology that might help you understand what's actually happening in those moments. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who profoundly influenced modern psychology, introduced the idea of synchronicity. He defined it as the meaningful coincidence of events that are causally unrelated. It's not luck, it's not superstition, it's something far more nuanced and far more useful for anyone making high-stakes decisions in complex environments. Synchronicity, in Jung's framework, is what happens when the conscious and unconscious mind align to recognize patterns that logic alone cannot see. Think about it this way. Your brain is processing millions of data points every single day. Most of them never reach conscious awareness. Your eyes are taking in visual information. Your ears are registering sounds. Your body is sensing subtle shifts in tone and energy and atmosphere. Your unconscious mind is running calculations on all of this information, finding connections and patterns that exist just beyond the threshold of your deliberate attention. When you have a gut feeling, you're actually experiencing the culmination of all that unconscious processing. You're tapping into a form of intelligence that's been accumulating evidence long before your conscious mind caught up. This isn't magic. It's not mystical thinking. It's cognitive science dressed up in philosophical language. And for a high-stakes decision maker, it's one of the most valuable tools you have access to. Consider the founder who felt uneasy about a major acquisition. All the metrics suggested the deal was sound. The valuation was reasonable. The synergies were clear. The market opportunity was legitimate. But there was something about the other company's leadership that felt off. Not obviously. There was no smoking gun, no blaring incompetence or dishonesty. Just a subtle wrongness that the founder couldn't articulate. So they walked away. 6 months later, a major accounting scandal emerged at the target company. The founder's intuitive system had detected patterns in behavior and communication that their conscious mind hadn't fully processed yet. The synchronistic moment came later, the arrival of unexpected information that confirmed the gut feeling. But the decision had already been made, guided by that deeper intelligence. This is how synchronicity works in the boardroom. It's not about mystical signs or cosmic alignment, though Jung himself wasn't entirely dismissive of those metaphors. It's about accessing a deeper operating system of decision-making that your training as an analytical leader has taught you to ignore or minimize. The question becomes, how do you cultivate this capacity? How do you learn to trust your intuition without sliding into recklessness or unfounded optimism? The answer lies in understanding what Jung really meant when he talked about the aligned psyche, the moment when your conscious intentions and your unconscious wisdom are pointing in the same direction. First, you need to create the conditions for synchronicity to emerge. This sounds paradoxical. You can't force a meaningful coincidence. You can't manufacture alignment between conscious and unconscious intention, but you can create the psychological and professional environment where it's more likely to surface. This begins with slowing down, not in the literal sense, though that helps, but slowing down your decision-making process. Moving at hyperspeed, driven by artificial urgency and the pressure to always have an answer, silences the quieter voice of intuitive knowing. When you're in the boardroom and everyone is looking at you for the decision, there's an enormous pressure to respond immediately, to have conviction, to demonstrate leadership through decisive action. But the most sophisticated leaders have learned to separate decision-making from action timing. You can reach a decision and hold it, letting it sit for a period of time. You can sleep on it. You can let your unconscious mind continue processing the information in the background. Second, you need to build what we might call intuitive literacy. You need to become fluent in the language of your own gut feelings. This requires paying attention. It means noticing the physical sensations that accompany different kinds of decisions. Does your chest tighten? Does your breathing change? Do you feel an expansion or a contraction in your body? These aren't abstract sensations. They're the language through which your nervous system communicates. Over time, you'll begin to recognize the signature of different types of intuitive knowing. There's the intuition that says no, the tightness, the resistance, the sense of misalignment. And there's the intuition that says yes, the opening, the sense of rightness, the clarity that seems to arrive from somewhere beyond conscious reasoning. Learning to distinguish between them is critical. Third, you need to develop what Jung would call psychological flexibility. This means being able to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. You can honor the data while also listening to the subtle signals your system is sending. You don't have to choose between analysis and intuition. The highest level decision-making integrates both. You analyze the spreadsheet, you acknowledge the rational case, and simultaneously, you listen to what your deeper intelligence is telling you about the situation. If they're aligned, you move forward with genuine conviction. If they're in conflict, you investigate the gap. You don't automatically defer to either one. Many leaders assume that synchronicity is something that happens to them, a lucky coincidence, a random alignment of circumstances that favors their decision. But Jung understood it differently. Synchronicity isn't something that happens to you. It's something you attract through the clarity and alignment of your own intention. When you're genuinely coherent, when your conscious goals and your unconscious values are pointing in the same direction, you notice opportunities and connections that others miss. You make decisions that seem lucky in retrospect because they align with a deeper pattern of meaning that was always present. There's a practice that many intuitive leaders use, though few articulate it in these terms. When facing a major decision, they'll spend time in what we might call deliberate uncertainty. They'll hold the question without rushing to resolve it. They'll notice what shows up in their awareness: unexpected conversations, random articles, encounters with people who offer relevant perspectives. They'll treat these arrivals not as coincidences, but as data points from their own deeper system. This is synchronicity in action. The universe isn't sending you signs. Your own integrated intelligence is directing your attention toward the information you need. The challenge, of course, is distinguishing true synchronicity from confirmation bias. It's easy to convince yourself that random events are meaningful when you want them to be. This is where the integration of analysis becomes crucial. Synchronicity should amplify your analytical understanding, not contradict it. If your gut is saying no, but you're manufacturing reasons to justify it, that's not synchronicity. That's defensive reasoning. True synchronicity feels like alignment, like the different systems of your intelligence coming into agreement. Consider what happens in your brain when you're making a high-stakes decision. Your prefrontal cortex is engaged. That's your analytical system. It's weighing options, calculating risks, projecting outcomes. But simultaneously, your limbic system is running its own calculations. It's reading subtle cues in human interaction. It's detecting inconsistencies and incongruencies. It's assessing safety and threat. And underneath that, your body's proprioceptive system is sending signals about alignment or tension. All of this is happening in parallel. Most of the time, you're only conscious of the prefrontal analysis, but the deeper systems are running constantly, and their output is what you experience as intuition. When these systems align, when your analysis, your emotional intelligence, and your somatic knowing are all pointing in the same direction, that's when synchronicity emerges. That's when decisions feel effortless. That's when things that seemed impossible suddenly become simple. And that's when the meaningful coincidences start occurring. Not because the universe is guiding you, but because your whole self is operating with integrated intelligence. You see what you're looking for. You recognize opportunities aligned with your deeper intention. You make decisions that resonate through the entire ecosystem of your life and work. The founder staring at the data dashboard in the dimness of late night is experiencing a familiar tension. The numbers say one thing, something else is saying another. In that moment, The choice isn't really between the data and the intuition. The choice is whether you're willing to honor the full spectrum of your own intelligence. The choice is whether you have the courage to trust that your system knows something your conscious mind hasn't yet articulated. This is what separates the intuitive executive from the merely decisive one. It's not about making faster decisions. It's not about having more confidence.